Philippines, welcome back. It is now Sunday, September 21 at exactly 4:42 p.m. I'm your host, Total Haruka, and we will be looking at what exactly has been going on and essentially, what do you want to talk about? So, let's get right into it. What is the main thing that's happening right now? And of course, the number one thing are the rallies that are happening right now. The rallies against anti-corruption that has plagued the DPWH, these flood control projects, and of course, it's the talk of the nation. So everyone knows that everything that these ghost projects, these senators allegedly, these Congress people allegedly, you know, have been also getting their cuts from these projects. And so all these rallies that are happening right now are anti-corruption. Although I myself support the anti-corruption rallies, I'm not out there walking because I'd rather be here at home and actually try to find other solutions to this matter. So rallying in the Philippines has so far not been as destructive as Indonesia and Nepal rallies, where they start burning these government buildings, these police districts, which I'm really thankful for, because that's not exactly how you push your message. You don't push your message by burning stuff. You push it by actually making the policies. And at the same time, you have these rallies that are just, I don't know how to say it. They're kind of late to the party because these rallies didn't happen because people or these rallyistas, these party lists started exposing was the corruption. It was actually the president who exposed these corruptions. The top 15 companies, the ghost projects, he himself listed them all, and now the rallies are actually a domino effect of what the president did. So you see these people saying, "Oh, the president should resign." The president is your number one supporter at the moment. The president even said himself, if he wasn't the president of the republic, he would be out there, and I believe him. But then the the youth will be a youth, and they'll probably just drag his name down. But at the same time, when we talk about change, and as much as rallying is your constitutional right, I think we have to address the elephant in the room on what exactly needs to happen. Because what these rallies do is that you are pointing out a broken window in a collapsing building. What I'm talking about is that the rallies are pointing out that something is wrong and that it needs to change. But they're not focusing on what exactly or what is the fundamental change that must happen. And in my humble opinion, I truly believe this, and I've been saying this for a few years now. It really is time for a new constitution. The Sixth Republic needs to come. The 1986 Constitution is a very, very old constitution. It has allowed, and people don't want to hear this, but you really do have to understand the corruption you're seeing, these loopholes, these backdoor dealings. These are a result of the 1986 Constitution. The 86 Constitution has, for lack of a better word, not really helped the Philippines get back to where it needs to be. It was written hastily to overthrow former President Marcos Sr., and it was written in a way that it can't be changed. Manuel L. Quezon said it beautifully. A nation ran by Filipinos like hell is better than ran by the Americans like heaven. He said that because the Filipino patriots of the time understood that with a Filipino government, you can change what needs to be changed. That cannot happen with this constitution because you need 3/4 of a vote in the House to change something. I don't know if you've been following the news inside the House of Representatives, but I doubt that there is a 3/4 of a majority waiting for that to change. So a new constitution and the Sixth Republic really does have to come. Because look, all of us support an anti-corruption effort, but we cannot stand here and sit here and allow ourselves to say that once we fix that, everything's gonna be okay. That's not true. You cannot tell me that a building will not crumble if the foundation is weak. The the only thing these rallies are doing is pointing out that this window is broken on the fifth floor, that window is broken on the eighth floor, and that window is broken on the 11th floor. While they are not even understanding that the ground itself, the ground they are standing, is already crumbling. But why is it that people refuse to even talk about the new constitution? If the president, with 31 million votes, had the mandate to finally change the constitution, but it wasn't in his agenda. So why is it? Why are some politicians just afraid of changing the current constitution? Well, number one, it's in favor to them. They're complacent and they're lazy. But I think we all knew that. The few people that want the constitution to change, they just don't have the numbers to make it happen in the House. And of course, to talk about the elephant in the room, if a Marcos was to change the constitution, an Aquino constitution, I think you and me can see the headlines that would, primarily run for the next few months here in the Philippines. So it's very sad to see, because you have these people who understand the need of change, but are afraid to change something that they consider to be sacred. Because for the people on the left, these yellows, these pinks, they don't want to change the 86th constitution because it is fundamentally admitting that they are wrong, that the constitution is wrong. It is not perfect the way that they thought it was. And it's because they've been made to believe that everything can be solved within the bounds of the 1986 Constitution, which is not true. They're made to believe that corruption can be solved within the 86 Constitution. Again, it's not true. Once these rallies are done, who's to say the next project won't have corruption? Who's to say that the next thing won't have corruption? All of us are pointing at the DPWH, but there might be corruption in customs right now, and we know there is. We know there are corruption in the ports, in the airports, but tahimik lang tayo. We're quiet about it. It really is time for a fundamental change. And to that point, why is it that even voters themselves, the youth, are afraid of it? Well, these, for lack of a better term, these so-called educated voters, educated youth, are they have their minds enslaved to it. You have these children, you have these youth who are aged 20 to 25. As much as we'd like to call them adults, even myself, I am already in my mid-20s, and even I don't consider myself an adult. We're still in our developing stage. We're always developing. We're not mature enough. So there comes a time where everything we read, everything we take it as fact. We take it as true to a point where we don't question it. Once we stop asking questions, that's how they get you. So going back, why is it that people don't ask more questions about the 86 Constitution? Well, it's because they've been told multiple times by their universities, their professors, or whoever they follow, that no, we don't have to change it. It's a perfect constitution. The republic is fine. We don't need to change. But that's not true. These people have been enslaved by the fact that they still want to believe that this constitution can serve them. But it just isn't true. And to be fair, what the politicians are actually afraid of are not educated voters. because educated voters can be manipulated. You can be educated. You can be a cum laude, a summa cum laude, a magna cum laude from the most prestigious university in the world, yet believe that communist policies are good. Are you kidding me? That's not education. That is literally a psyop. That is indoctrination. Let's just call it for what it is. That's indoctrination. You can be educated and believe such false narratives. What the politicians and people in power are afraid of are free thinking voters. People who allow themselves to hear from both sides of the political spectrum and create their own mind, their own ability to think. That's the beauty of it. If you allow yourself to listen from one spectrum and the other spectrum, and you start to allow yourself to have your own thinking, that's what they're afraid of. Because now they can control you. Everything you now believe is because of your own belief, not because someone else told you, not because you were taught to by some educated personality. It's because it's what you believe in. So let's go back and talk about essentially what needs to happen. Number one. Well, again, the sixth constitution the sixth republic needs to come. That's just it. And I don't know why people are just afraid. And looking at X or Twitter, you see these people, and oh my god, don't even get me started on those that are actually protesting, like the ones in Indonesia and Nepal. Like, hey, I understand you're angry, but is burning streets, hurting police officers the necessary way to do it? For lack of a better term, they're probably anarchist forces placed there for destabilization efforts, because you have peaceful protesting, but at the same time you have these, let's call them unpeaceful protesters that are just creating chaos and just making lives harder for everyone, for the police, for paramedics. And at the end of the day, it's the cleaners, or it's those that clean for Manila, who have to answer for it at the end of the day. Because come on, you're gonna tell me these people have Molotov cocktails ready in hand in stash somewhere? No, absolutely not. They're probably paid to do it, or they were influenced to do it. But hey, allegedly, I'm not trying to spread anything, just alleged. And I know that me as a young person, I'm a bit too idealistic at times, or I'm a bit too optimistic that these things can happen. And when I say about these things, that this type of reform that I believe in can happen. But I truly believe there is a place for it. There are young voters who understand. They're just afraid to speak up. And I understand it. You don't want to be seen as, people have a fear, or young people have a fear of missing out. Young people have a fear of not being part of a movement, or something that gives them purpose. And that's just true. Young people have these fears because it's a rational fear. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that we cannot just keep on rallying and rallying and rallying. If you want real change, you have to start at the real issue. You cannot scream foul and still play by the same damn rules for 36 years. It's just not possible. It's just not. The and again, and here, how about you and me go into Twitter right now and just see what's happening? Because there's a lot happening. Like, good God. You have, and oh my, you have people who are wearing Antifa stuff. You have people wearing masked individuals and just throwing dissent. Why do you have to do this? You don't have to do this, but at the same time, it makes you wonder. They're probably paid to do this. They're obviously anarchist forces trying to make do this. And hey, look, if people want to express their constitutional right, go at it. But I want them to understand that real change, we really have to do something about that. And again, it goes back to the role of the voter. You have to allow yourself to think for yourself. Don't allow other people to say to say for you what you don't really believe in or what you don't really think. It's That's why the youth is labeled as it is. The, the youth are malarali. Ang youth ay maingay. But at the same time, the youth right now are some of the brightest minds we could possibly have. But we're all bogged down from the same talking points because these loud minorities supposedly speak for us when in reality, no. And here's another thing I want to talk about to the youth. If there are any youth listening, please allow yourself to actually converse with other people, with other sides. It's healthy. It's very healthy. And shout out, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Shout out to him. But he always believed in the fact that once people stop talking, violence begins. And that is fundamentally true in any nation for any society. We have to understand one another. We have to talk to one another. Whether you fundamentally disagree with me or not, I will give you the chance to speak. I will listen to you because it is what makes a society a society. Do not dismiss people just because they are on one side of the political spectrum. Do not belittle them because you believe you are superior to them. Allow yourself to listen. And if you disagree, that's fundamentally good. You must disagree. We have to disagree. If we live in the world where everyone were just yes men, that's not a world I would want to live in. And it can be something as simple as what's our favorite movie to something fundamental as what government policies should the president implement. The moment we realize that we can have this civil conversation and have fun and have an understanding with one another, that's how you start having free thinking voting. It's such a beautiful thing that I think the Philippines hasn't lost, but people are trying to kill it. They're trying to dumb it down. They want us to not talk to one another. They want us to fear one another. They want us to have these. I can't even begin to explain. Even if you fundamentally disagree with a person, just listen to them. And then when it's your time to speak, tell them in a nice way, hey, I disagree with you with this because like this, because I believe in this. That's how we start to build questions that people start to understand for themselves. And again, it goes back to what we talked about, the fear and complacency. Let's be honest, para sa mga Pilipino, ilang beses na natin narinig ang, ay, pwede na yan. Ay, okay na yan. Ay, sakto na yan. Parang araw-araw natin naririnig yon. And it's kind of it's kind of been bogged down into a Filipino quality na pwede na. But no. It shouldn't be good enough. And we need to hold those accountable. After the rallies, I really do hope people start to understand that it's not just corruption. The entire system must change. The entire fundamentals of the system must change. I can go on and on about what I think are the faults of the 86 Constitution, and I think I'll do that for another episode because oh my god, don't even get me started on the FDIs, on the partyless system, which has now proven to be a failed system. And what else? The term limits for the houses who've since you've limited term limits for the lower house, it's actually led to more political dynasties than lessened them. For giving a president a one term 6 year platform, having president and vice president not even run on the same party or on the same ticket. These are just surface level issues that the Constitution have that we could go on and on, but not today. There's not today. There's so much we can learn from the outside world, but there's also so much that we should be cautious of. If you were on social media for the past few weeks, you would understand that the lead up to the September 21st rallies was that everyone was supposed to go out, wear masks, be in black, and essentially be a rally like Indonesia and Nepal. To me, that was an issue because it doesn't have to be that way. What exactly did the Nepal and Indonesian riots do? Sure, you could point out, oh, but in Nepal, they had a new prime minister because of the rallies. But they also burned down their government buildings that were paid for taxpayers. They also burned all their all the police, all the army. And it's too premature to even say that change will come. I and for Indonesia, good God, do I need to say more? Indonesia, the purpose of the route, from what I've been hearing, is that they were protesting the increased wages of their lawmakers. Understandable. But then they started burning provincial capitals, police buildings, and started just having a riot. That's how you lose the message. That's how you lose the support of the people. So, that begs a bigger question. How do we balance it? Wala naman kasi talaga sa dugo ang pagrarally sa mga Pilipino. We're a very confrontational type of people, yes. But we're confrontational in a sense that we actually get stuff done. If we wanted to be confrontational, we would do it where it matters. And I think there is a chance. I don't believe Filipinos have been blinded or have their minds enslaved yet. I think there is still hope. And I hope I am right that there is still hope. Because honestly, seeing the youth, seeing our universities, how they, it's sad to say, but how they prevent freedom of speech. So I don't know if there are other listeners out there, but if you've ever felt like you've been not allowed to speak or you've been not allowed to express your own opinion that goes against the institution because you're afraid to be red tagged by your own university or college, I've been there. I know how that feels. And you don't have to be alone when it comes to these institutions that prevent you from having your own thoughts. I think it's important to understand that you will make enemies. People will call you hurtful words, even. They might even call you a Nazi. They'll call you a fascist just because you don't vote with the norm. Allow yourself to have that freedom to think for yourself. Because once you're free thinking and you actually have do your own research and you inform yourself, that's scarier than rallies. That is a 10 times scarier. Because rallies are a show of force in terms of you just, you're just on the street. But if you're informed and you're a voter, these politicians wouldn't even dare touch you. The ones that have allowed this complacency, these lazy people who don't even do anything in the House or in the Senate. Once you allow yourself, you'll be free. You'll never have to fear for anything again. But we're going off topic a little bit. How about we look into what exactly is happening in Manila? As I've heard, there's now a curfew in Manila directed by the mayor. Good job, Isko. But there's also been a lot of fires. There's also been a lot of unpeaceful protesters, as I've said. And what else? What else do we have? Ang dami talaga. But again, going back to the rallies, it's really just a show. It's not even. Honestly, I wouldn't even call it a show of force. It's just people marching in one straight line. Well, hey, I'll give them credit where credit is due. They haven't burnt down a building yet. Although reports did say that one group in the Ayala Bridge, wanted to burn down Malacanang. And let me just rant about that. What type of message would you send if you actually burnt down the palace? I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't think people understand that if you burn down government buildings, if you burn down these things, well, of course, we know these are anarchist forces, but at the same time, just arrest them. Honestly, good God, before they even do more damage. Because everyone is for anti-corruption. I am for anti-corruption. You're for anti-corruption. Well, I hope you're for anti-corruption. But there is a proper way to do it. Burning stuff down, hurting, the police because they're just doing their job isn't the way to do it. And oh, good Lord, look at what's happening in Mendiola. Anarchist forces now, you know, they already start breaking government property. They're breaking street lights. They're harassing in the streets. Like, what exactly do you gain by destroying street lights and stoplights? If anything, you've just made more traffic. Like, huh? Are you kidding me? So this is what I'm talking about. Even if there are peaceful rallies, it's these types of rallies that make you think, what exactly will that do? And then once they're red tagged, or once they're rightfully apprehended for the crime they did, which is destruction against government property or public property, what are they gonna do? Ay, freedom of speech ko. Ay, the ability to rally. Ay. Oh, come on. Really? Wag na tayo maglokohan dito. We know about the stuff they do, and good Lord. And speaking about these youth kids, Kiko Barzaga. That quiet part that you heard just there, it's just me thinking, how the hell did this guy get into the House of Rep, into the lower house? Like, I've seen the interview he's done, where he talks about how he's idealistic, he's too energetic, and yeah, I mean, he's the youth. I don't know what's the age gap between me and him, but like, I understand, but like, he was shouting in the lower house that he would overthrow the former speaker Romualdez, and that he would have himself elected. Like, you know, they say pride is a sin, but I don't think that's pride. Even some people would be like, hold on, like, wait a minute, parang iba na ata yan. Kasi grabe, how do you walk yourself into the office of the Speaker of the House and declare that right at his face? That's not hubris, that's not pride. There's probably a special word to use. just to describe what he did that day. It's, oh, good lord. Ay. Well, thankfully, his degeneracy has been called out because, my God, eh, alam mo paminsan talaga, you just need to laugh at it all. Kasi one, it's politics. Politics is a really funny game at the end of the day kasi hindi mo talaga siya maiintindihan because nobody understands politics. At the end of the day, politics is politics, and if you ask someone and they say, "Oh, I know, I know politics," not really, because politics can change as quickly as a second or as quickly as a millisecond. But as rallies are happening all around the Philippines, and it's not just in Manila, actually. I believe there's a rally happening in Iloilo. There's one in Davao, which, oh my God, talk about talk about not actually knowing what the real issue is. Like, good God. And actually, you know what? Side tangent. Let's just talk about that real quick. There's a rally in Davao. The rally is quote unquote supposedly anti-corruption, but in reality, it's been known that it's just a bring home for President Duterte. If there's one thing I will really applaud President Marcos for what he did these past few months is that he really exposed the dirtiness of what the previous admin did to the DPWH. Like, we've known for a time. Like, let's be honest. We know there is corruption and we know there is incompetency when it comes to some public works and public projects. But to the extent that the previous admin allowed, good lord. And I think the nail in the coffin for me was when the president announced that back then you would have the LGU actually look at the project, and that mayor, that barangay captain, that governor has to sign himself that it is a good project, it was completed completely. The previous admin removed that, as told by the president. It was removed by the previous admin. And I wonder why, now that we know how many failed projects and ghost projects there are, Lord knows how much of that money is just embezzled and in their pockets right now. We talk about the Discayas and these engineers, but we're kind of missing the fundamental is that the previous admin just allowed this to happen. And again, this is what I was talking about, where the president was the one who President Marcos Jr. was the one who started the damn thing in the first place. He was the one who exposed the top tier. Here are the top 15 contractors, and all of them have a monopoly on all flood control projects in the country. Here's how much we're given. Here's how much was embezzled. Here's what those projects look like. Nobody did that except the president. There weren't any big rallies after the flooding happened. The president looked at the nation, he looked at the flood control projects, and then he realized, wait a minute. It's been 3 years since my presidency, and a lot of these projects that were done by the previous admin and that were signed by the previous admin were supposed to be done. Why the hell is my country still under the water? Or why is it still flooding? He looks into it. He finds out what's really happening, and now the protesters outside want him to resign. Are you kidding me? Talk about tone deaf. But this is what I was talking about. You have these educated voters who come from prestigious universities who probably, I won't deny they're probably smarter than me, and in some areas they're probably more experienced than me in some areas. But you're trying to bring down the guy that essentially helped you understand that, holy crap, the embezzling scheme is insane in the nation. He's the reason we have these. He's the reason why why Secretary Dizon is not a DPWH, and he's doing a fantastic job. And now we have the independent commission who's doing their own investigation, and all of these are being exposed under his presidency, and you want him to resign? Talk about tone deaf, talk about uneducated, but they will never give the president his flowers because of one simple thing. I'll give you about 5 seconds to think what it is. If you said it's because he was a Marcos, then you're right. That's essentially it. If if President Bongbong Marcos was born with a different last name, they'd probably be giving him his flowers. And some of the main talking points of the other side of the political spectrum, let's just call them the liberal left. And I've talked to some of them. I have classmates who are liberal left. I have friends who are liberal left, and they know I'm a bit more conservative right. But when you talk to them, when you ask them what they wanted if Lenny had won the 2022 election, what are the top things they list? They want to go away with China, because at the time during former President Duterte, we were very close with China. They want to do away with China. They want to expose corruption. They want fundamental social policies. Okay? What else would they want? They'd want so many things from Lenny. So let's look at President Marcos's presidency right now. A shift of 180 from China to the United States, and not just to the US, but to like-minded nations, to Japan, Australia, France, England, Canada, South Korea, even Taiwan to an extent. Have you ever heard of a Filipino president in the modern era talk about Taiwan the way the president is talking about Taiwan? I have never seen a more hardline stance from a Filipino president than actually mention Taiwan. Like, good God, I don't even think any other president would have the would have the courage to even say that. To talk about Taiwan in front of China. China's right in front of the Philippines, and the president just casually says, "Oh, if there's a war in China, we'll have to intervene because our people are there," which is true. But anyway, I digress. What's the other thing? Expose corruption. Expose corruption, you say, like the one that the president is doing right now. He's essentially exposing one of the biggest corruption issues of the 21st century for the Philippines. All right. And social policies, energy, agriculture, and now the recently discount for the LRT MRT for students. There's healthcare. There's more. Like, I could go on and on. Like, so everything you wanted from a possible Lenny presidency, Marcos is doing. But you'll never give him his flowers because he's a Marcos. And even talking about it, let's not be blind to the fact that that's just the truth of it. The moment these educated people hear the word Marcos, it's like a Winter Soldier thing in their minds, where it triggers, like, and all of a sudden their mind shuts off, their ears shut off. And I use the word educated lightly. It's fundamentally because their minds and their way of thinking has been enslaved by a narrative that they believe to be true for 38 years ongoing. They have refused to ask questions. They've refused to question these so-called narratives that are being told to them. They only accept it as fact. And they only accept it as fact because they're either afraid that they won't be part of a group, their friend group or whatever, or they just want to be part of something. It's just how the way the world goes, and you just have to understand that is, that's the youth. The youth are afraid when they shouldn't be. Honestly, they shouldn't be afraid. Well, anyways, let's dive back again. What else is there to talk about in the world that we know today? We've been talking for the past 40 minutes. We've been talking about uh, more domestic issues, but I'd actually like to finish up, or at least try to finish up, with a few more international things, because as a student of international affairs, I this is more my forte than talking about domestic policies and domestic issues. But um, the number one thing I think all Filipinos can agree upon is that BS narrative that China is spewing around right now, where they want to build, what do they call it? An environmental habilitation or whatever. And the reason why I don't want to say the actual name, because we all know it's BS. We all know they're full of it. That's like, they literally stole, which one was it? They they literally got that area in the West Philippine Sea because they said that their fishermen were just gonna stay there because, oh, their ship broke down. Oh, there's a storm coming, so we're just gonna anchor here for a while. And only 5 to 10 years later, they're already building islands in that same area. So no one's gonna believe this narrative, and I'm thankful for the Philippines that our DFA is being smart about it. But they're doing what they're doing. They're just fighting another diplomatic protest. I hope to actually see physical presence from either the Coast Guard, because again, the president doesn't want it to escalate. And to the president's credit, the Philippines has never escalated when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. We've never been the escalatory um issue that the Chinese Communist state wants the world to believe, and everyone doesn't believe them. But at the same time, I really hope that our action doesn't start and end with diplomatic protest. I hope to see the Coast Guard over there to actually prevent it from happening, because we all know it's BS. We all know they're using it as a front to make them build more islands and steal more territory from us. So uh, I really hope that it's not just a DFA, but I'm not gonna call upon the Navy because we don't want an international incident, but to the Coast Guard specifically. We are praying for you. We're always praying that you do a magnificent job, and we know that your sacrifices, the men and women that serve, nothing but gratitude, respect, and God's blessings be upon you guys. And as we end, if there is one thing, if you forget everything I've talked about right now, if there's one thing I want you guys to remember, is that allow yourselves to have a conversation. Don't enslave your mind to an idea, to a movement. Allow yourself to talk. Allow yourself to talk with these people. Have your own way of thinking. Don't be enslaved. Because what these people want is for us not to talk. And once conversation starts, violence happens. Thank you all for listening to my monologue, although it did become a rant towards the end. And, this is one of my first monologues. So if it's a bit unprofessional, or if it's a bit unpolished, we're hoping to get there in maybe the next episode or next few. Nothing starts perfect, but we always aim at least for something better. So time is 5:25 Philippines. We just talked about a lot of things, and I hope to talk to you guys again soon.